So, welcome back, guys, to the Improvement Season podcast. I know it's a shame that I'm once again introducing and I'm the host of the show this time. I'm sorry for all of the guys listening. But here we are, Improvement Season podcast, together with Steve on the other end, and it is me, Pascal Flo. So, Steve, how are you doing?
I am mixed. I have a few feelings going on at the moment. One is I just had like a pump not just a few hours ago, a pump pre-workout formula that had beta-alanine in. I never take beta-alanine. So now I'm like, I can feel the tingles again, which I don't really enjoy, to be honest. And I'm also quite stuffed because I just ate a big bowl of oats.
So yeah. I'm already looking forward to after the podcast because I'm planning on getting in a bowl of cereals. And I'm already thinking of that one.
What cereal?
I already recorded a vlog like recently about it. It's Choco or Rice Krispies, I think, in the UK.
Okay.
But it's Choco Krispies in Germany. It's with the monkey, right? The small rice.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
Cocoa Pops.
Cocoa Pops. Oh, see, it's kind of a different thing in UK or different name. Very confusing though, because I think that Choco Pops here in Germany are those moon-like chocolate.
Oh, they're
kind
great.
Of chips.
The curls.
Yeah.
I love those. We don't really have those.
I think that those are called Choco Pops. And that was, I think it was a bear in the past. And now the monkey is also on that one. I don't know what happened to the bear. Maybe they fired him.
Terminated.
Maybe he didn't do a good job in selling those. And the monkey was much more popular on the Choco Krispies here in Germany. So that they thought like, okay, do you still have some time left open to also be the model for the Choco Pops?
I'm going to be back on the cereal in no time, I have a feeling.
Oh, boy. And I'm starting then the cutting phase probably.
Yes. So is that when do you start? Where you're deloading or are you done deloading now?
Yeah, I'm deloading now. I'm not training this week though, simply because I still wasn't feeling great. And still I'm not. I don't know what's going on, to be honest. It's just like hanging around. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to relax as much as I can.
Yeah.
The first workouts will be starting here from Saturday onwards then. And I hope that then I'm at a point of recovery where I'm just like moving forward and progressing once again. That it's not that bad anymore. But yeah, it has been around for a very long time now. An entire mesocycle. I have been not feeling the greatest. The plan is then right now at least to start dieting and then take it into next year, see where we're at, and then either continue the contest prep or not. But I'm still contemplating because it's funny that because we've been talking about diet breaks in the past and with my experiences, my personal experiences, and also with a couple of clients, and now just recently, 2 weeks ago, one of my athletes, he's very lean already. He's preparing for a photo shoot and he actually came out of the diet break without us having talked about it. And he said like, Pascal, I would have rather kept dieting through the diet break because now I have the feeling that I'm having a harder time getting back on things. And also during the diet break, I just had a harder time. It wasn't that he is susceptible for binging, not at all. But it was just like, it was a break in momentum. And it's kind of decelerating the momentum and just slowing you down. Whereas then I'm just coming to think of like the potential benefits of a diet break against the potential cons. And the cons are just things that we've talked about in the past, that some people just have an easier time sticking to just the momentum and keep it going. Whereas then, of course, on the contrarian side is the potential loss of muscle mass, inner deload, that you're not recovering as well. But then again, what is more important? And I think that this is a question of an individualized approach, in my opinion. And that's why right now I'm still like thinking, okay, do I first want to start in the next year with the cutting phase? Because I've found in the past that when I'm taking a diet break for longer, then I'm definitely losing that momentum. I have the feeling that longer than a week diet break is definitely detrimental for me. And already at a week, we are kind of already on the edge when it comes to falling then off the wagon. It's not that I'm binging then or so. It's just like, I don't know. I like riding the momentum. And once I'm off that wave, I have the feeling that there's a change of pace happening. Right? And then getting back on that wave, the wave is kind of long gone, and I would need to catch the next wave. And it's sometimes hard to actually get on that wave once again. So that's why I'm still like thinking, okay, do I really want to start now with the mindset of like diet breaks kind of being detrimental for me?
Yeah, I wonder if for someone like yourself, if a week is okay, but more than that could be detrimental. I wonder if you could have a longer complete prep in that it looks like really long, but you have more weeks where you're like take a break versus kind of having an extended like maintenance primer phase between the two diets, where I could see that being challenging. And I'm kind of trying to avoid that actually, because I'm taking that's why I did the mini cut, so I don't have to then do a diet before the diet. And I'm kind of like, I can go through the mass primer, then diet straight through with some weeks off. I wonder if for you, yeah, I guess it's, you kind of can take it as it comes in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I can do both. It's not that I can't do a diet break at all. But from my own experience, it makes things sometimes just harder. I had more unsuccessful diet breaks than successful ones. And I'm also referring to the time after, how easy it is to get into the groove of things once again. Because yeah, it's just like then once again hard to get back into the groove of things, even though I'm not changing the variables at all. Still eating the same things, but just with a different food distribution of the portion size. Portion size tries to stay the same, but more so like, I don't know, I'm consuming more calorically dense things in that meal instead of the high voluminous foods, and still getting in those steps, etc. So nothing really changes, and still it kind of makes me deviate from or I don't know what it is. Like honestly, if I really want to pinpoint it to one single thing, I couldn't. But I just know that it feels harder for me than not taking a diet break at all.
I think it's funny, you know this about me, Pascal. I don't know if the listeners will know it. They probably won't. Every deload I have, I pretty much have this kind of after a couple of days, I don't know what it is. My mind just starts wandering and I start questioning things and I get out of the groove. So I wonder if that's part of it, particularly like when cutting, because it's like it's a goal and then you kind of like put it on pause, body weight potentially comes up, and it just psychologically is such a challenging time because it isn't like, and I know Mike's spoken about this on the podcast, like when people hear diet break, they think, oh yes, sweet, I can have a pizza. And it's like, it's not a true like break of the diet. It's just a practicing of maintenance, essentially. Yeah. So I can see that being really challenging for particularly like people like yourself who are very much like down the line, I've got a goal in mind, one way in, one way out.
Yeah, I think that it has a lot to do with the mental aspect of people and thus just like how they are tuned. Because for me, it has always been like that. When I want to pursue a goal, then it's just this. And I can be very extreme with those things and can tune out a lot of things around me, even up to a certain extreme point where I would even be willing to just like sacrifice everything around me just to pursue that one thing. And I wouldn't really care that much. That doesn't mean that I'm not caring about the other things. It's just I'm tuned into that one specific thing. And I think it's a good skill to have at times, but also at other times when you really consider it can be detrimental for especially like social things. But yeah, probably something, I mean, I would very much think that it has a lot to do with the mental approach and the type of person you are. But yeah, how's what's your mini cut like? You're finished now, right?
So yes, I just finished the mini cut, which again, it's interesting. I wonder if the same people that struggle with diet breaks struggle with mini cuts, because people get very tempted to continue a mini cut, and it is just short, sharp, similar to like taking a diet break in many ways. And I want, if you're like a one-track mind, I'm cutting or I'm gaining, and it's just like a mini cut therefore is like, just puts like a, spanner in the works for you. Whereas for me, like I'm okay with diet breaks, I'm okay with mini cutting. So anyway, 4 weeks done and dusted. I just took like a short half deload and starting back into things today. So I just did my AM push workout And having gone from kind of combining my sessions to now splitting them up, I was like, man, that was done so quickly. It's like done and dusted in 30 minutes, did like some pushing and then did some abs and calves. And then I got like triceps and delts later. So it's going to be interesting spreading it again, but training from home now and in lockdown, I mean, it's super easy. So I'm excited to get back into it.
To be honest, just I don't have it that long anymore for getting to the gym. Gyms are shut now, but still those 10 to 15 minutes of a car ride to the gym and back again, and that twice daily, it adds up to an hour, right? And if you're now training from at home, holy shit, you got so much time then.
Yeah, for me, I think I said to you at the start, at least, it wasn't seemingly saving me time, but I think it was because I was like, I didn't know how to set the equipment up, so I had space because it was awkward, and then also picking loads and stuff. But now I think you're right in that I can just kind of get up and go. For the most part, there are some things like setting up to do the belt squat on the lat pull down on the low pulley is such a pain in the ass. It's pretty awful. But for the most part, yeah, it's pretty efficient and quick. So that's been nice. And yeah, just eking up calories. And I guess, yeah, I'm in this mode until I think it's March. And then take a primer phase through April and then start prep in May. So
in May?
It will come soon, but yeah, in May.
Yeah, crazy.
Do you feel like that's soon?
No.
Or late?
It sounds late, but also just from a perspective, because I think that it has become more and more, I don't know, a thing that longer preps are the way to go. And then hearing just the time frame sounds like a short time frame, but I know it's appropriate and I know it's very well thought out. So, yeah, it's just hearing that, you know?
Yeah, it will be... I'll be 190 pounds, there or thereabouts. I predict stage weight around 170. So I have 20 pounds to lose in just over 20 weeks. So I have more than a pound a week. So I think, yeah, from experience, I know I'll be able to get there. And from experience as well. And I think you'll probably agree, Pascal, I tend to get ready early. And I think that will bite me in the arse because I'm not sure I'm someone who can retain leanness and tissue very well. I think I get quite like just small effectively. So I kind of want to avoid over dieting because I think that's my tendency.
Yeah, no, makes absolute sense. And so what's the plan now over the Christmas period? How's the situation in the UK with gyms and all that kind of stuff, and also regulations over Christmas? Are you able to go and visit family? Is that prohibited? Or
they haven't said anything about Christmas really at all yet that I know of. They've got a meeting for gyms on the 23rd because there was like 600,000 people signed this petition. I mean,
crazy.
Yeah, I know, quite a lot of people. Let's see what happens.
Wow, I'm quite impressed about that. Wow.
And then what else? There was... Yeah, so on the 2nd of December, that's when the lockdown was meant to officially end. And then I think we'll probably enter a tiered system where different kind of counties or whatever have different tiers, or cities or something like counties, I guess. But I don't know. We don't know what's happening for Christmas. So it's all up in the air. Have they confirmed anything in Germany? Do you know what you can do?
No. So unfortunately, it's like we said, the first time already I called it with the UK and lockdowns. And I think I called it also here with gym that I can't see them opening up after 1 month. And last, what was it, 2 days or 3 days ago, the ministers sat together discussing things and just giving an update about the situation. And now next week they will be coming together and actually coming up with new regulations probably. And I would very much assume that before next year, the gyms are not going to open up. And the thing is that they, in my opinion at least, they did something that is very wrong in the way they communicated. And that is that they already set some expectations that they want everyone to be able to go spend their the Christmas together with a family and loved ones. And just by mentioning that, you're already putting some expectations in people's mind of like, yeah, this is going to happen. We will do everything possible that this is going to happen. And if it then turns out that it can't happen, then people will get upset because you set those expectations already for them, instead of saying like, okay, we need to first and foremost look at the here and now. We need to bring those numbers down, instead of saying like, I don't know, giving some future expectations. It's the same when it comes to training and nutrition. You, at least as a coach, hardly ever should you make some kind of, or give the client some expectations of what the outcome of a cutting phase, of a gaining phase will be, because if you don't get there, they are massively disappointed. If they get there, they start to slack off, because that was the initial expectation, right? And then all of a sudden, like, okay, why should I even work any harder, because I've already gotten there? And that's why I'm such a big fan of process-oriented goals instead of outcome-oriented goals. And that was something that they shouldn't have done, but I don't really care about Christmas that much. I mean, I'm at home with my family. I can be at home with my family. If we can't have the dinner with Katie's parents 2 days after, that's all right to me.
Yeah, I think here, I don't even know what we do. Last year, it's actually funny because we just released the first vlog of mine, which was like dieting over Christmas, and people were like really confused. They're like,
Christmas?
Well, that seems early. Oh, no one's wearing face masks. So yeah, if you haven't checked the vlogs out, do check them out, because they're going to be coming out quite frequently now.
Yeah.
So yeah, last year, obviously, me and Charlotte went to her parents. That's the first Christmas I think I've ever been away from my family. And this year it might just be us and the dog. Yeah. So who knows? And yeah, I'm not really looking forward to having to, well, normally me and Charlotte do like our own Christmassy thing at some stage anyway, and exchange gifts. So Charlotte normally does all the cooking. So I actually, to be fair, I can't complain because there's not much I have to do.
Yeah.
But
I actually like that. So I'm always the one doing like a huge feast, and that has been the case over the past couple of years now. And that's what I'm going to do this year as well. So
keeps you busy.
Yeah, not just keeps me busy, but I really like that, because normally we are not really the chefs at home. Okay. Unfortunately, because cooking is such a nice thing, by the way. But the thing is that also just standing in the kitchen for like an hour just to, I don't know, make some food for Katie and I and the kids, they don't really care. They basically eat everything. They don't have the taste buds of like, oh, right, this is not a good steak or whatever, right? Something like that. And that's why I just like that. And I think that Katie is very fond of that as well, of creating a nice atmosphere for the kids around Christmas, so that it's a little bit nostalgia as well when they are looking back and be like, yeah, Christmas with my parents, that was always like a lovely time.
Yeah. That's what you want. And yeah, I haven't seen my parents or sisters and nephews and nieces in, I don't even know the last time I saw them. So it'd be nice to be able to have that, but we'll take it as it comes. I'm not like totally upset. I can train on Christmas Day again because I've got this gym here, which is hilarious and really sad at the same time. But yeah, I have no expectations for Christmas.
The plates arrived. So last week I ordered some plates. Did I tell you about? Oh no, last week wasn't the coaching corner. So the week prior to that, I think that I didn't. That was the time where I didn't order any kind of plates. But I was digging around through the internet to see where I could find some reasonably priced plates or weights, and that doesn't take you like up until December or January to be shipped. And I found a place, and that was amazing. And I was able to get my hands on 4 times 20 kilogram plates and 2 times 2.5 kilogram plates. And I also ordered a barbell just a while back, just like a 155 centimeter barbell, so not an Olympic barbell. And now I have everything at home. I can even load it up to something 140 kilograms. Booyah. This is great. Because of this, I can't really wait to get started with a new mesocycle, especially for something like SLDLs and so. Now I can very much overload my lower body as well, very nicely.
Fast, efficient fat loss. Does that sound like music to your ears? The mini cut movement might just be for you. Mini cuts are like robbing the fat bank. You want to get in and out with as much fat as possible. In a short period of time, you could easily look to lose 6 to 12 pounds of fat. The mini cut movement is excellent. There's group support for extra accountability and also expert help within the group. We have educational videos to keep you on track along the way, and you get all your nutrition and training customized and individualized for you. So if that sounds of interest, get involved with the mini cut movement. Yeah, it's looking for plates. is hard, actually, because I even had a look the other day because I wanted some for my dumbbells, the adjustable dumbbells, because they only go up to 22.5 each. So I can load one up to quite heavy, but otherwise they're no good for heavy dumbbell pressing, which I think I told you that I wanted to be doing because I haven't done it in ages. But I have a quick look and I'm like, either no one's in stock, it's going to take ages to come, or it costs an arm and a leg. I can't spend, I'd spend hours searching to try and find something. I can't be bothered. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I just need another adjustable bench and then I'm all set up here. I didn't really think of maybe getting all of this equipment, but at the same time, like having a couple of weights here, this rack I can easily break down again. Having like a bench, and then I'm very well set up, like very well set up.
And the bench can be used as just a stool or a
no,
chair for the kids.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? I want an adjustable bench, and that one, also the cheaper ones, they are all sold out. And then you just end up with those super fancy ones where it's just like, I don't need all of that fancy stuff on the bench. I just need an adjustable bench. Maybe because of my construction skills now. So I've built that rack. And I've built this week a bed for my son. And so to be honest, I have no idea about like construction work or just building something, or honestly no idea. I think our generation is like that. We are not the best ones when it comes to that. So I went out and built that bed all by myself, also making that kind of the plan myself without actually looking on the internet. And I was very, very proud of myself because that bed is dope. And maybe I should try building my own adjustable bench. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that would be... I've seen some people make some benches. An adjustable one, that's good going if you try and do that.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But a flat bench? Yeah, maybe.
Flat that could work. I know Mike Chalice is using... Mike Chalice, our physio, for his incline bench, you're looking at incline benching and you're just like, are you going to be okay? He's like using a wardrobe or something that he's putting up at an angle and then like anchoring in somehow. And I'm just boy. As long as you're sure that that's okay, Mike. Yeah.
But he's a professional, so
he is.
He knows what he's doing.
Should we get to questions? I think.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, if you don't have anything else to update the people on.
Nothing super amazing that I can think of. The only thing, actually, I have one thing. I'll quickly say it. I get a lot of questions about progressing through mesocycles. And recently we just released released the auto-regulation progression method that I called it auto-regulation progression. But if people are confused about using RAR and potentially some set progression through a mesocycle and they want a comprehensive presentation, that just got released. And I hope that answers a lot of people's questions. So
cool.
We'll see. So if people want to check it out.
Nice. I haven't watched it yet, so I need to check the one.
Just put it together.
Yeah, even though that I edited it. But what I've recorded here today is the second part of Build Your Own Spreadsheet, where I'm basically kind of setting up the training protocol.
Cool.
I didn't really program though, so for those in hope of getting a free training plan from me, that's not what it is. But I'm showing you how you can create your own training template that you then can use for yourself maybe, or your clients or your business to maybe take it to the next level. And the first part that was all setting up the nutritional sheet and so was very well received. And I really do hope that the second part is as well. And yeah, it's more like I'm just winging it though on the presentation. It's not that I'm having a script in front of me, and that's why it's sometimes like a trial and error. Some things work, some things don't, but I think that this gives the people the very, very good insight of how you can go about creating your very own spreadsheet as well.
Yeah, I know how often people get obsessed about spreadsheets and wanting to see them, and I've definitely been asked for spreadsheets before, so better to have a course on how you can create it yourself, because then you can actually individualize it to the needs of your clients and what you need as well, so that's cool.
Absolutely. Then let's go over to questions. The first one, can you guess who it is?
Is it Andrew?
It is Andrew. Andrew Potacek, our supporter, our man. How much work do you guys do on nutritional changes with clients? I know it's macro-based, but I know often our clients off with their choices and have to give suggestions. I'm still in disbelief when I hear things. I like people using the if it fits your macros too far. Haha. So I think that this is something that we covered the last time on the Improvement Season podcast, where we talked about weird things and immature. I would like to call it immature behavior around nutrition, right? Trying to make or abuse if it fits your macros too much. And I would just say, listen to the last Improvement Season podcast. I think that this is where we are talking about it, and there's no need to actually go into that one once again too much in depth.
Yeah, the only additional thing, I can't remember if I said this, that I do is I just have the disclaimer as kind of 80% wholesome, minimally processed foods, 20% can come from what have you. And then I describe, I normally try and get them to take me through an average day. What does an average day of eating look like for you? And then I can be a little bit critical. And some people, we have to go into checking their MyFitnessPal, and then sometimes I'm shocked because I'm like, okay, you're eating lots of cheese and processed meats. Probably dial that down a little bit. So yeah.
This is how I'm handling things as well. So when something seems off, or I'm even suggesting then, if you want me to have a look over it, then send it over. If not, that I'm expecting that things are in check and that you are taking good care of your nutrition, because it is like we say, right? I mean, if it fits your macros, is in it for itself a good approach, because that respects the overall laws of thermodynamics. But at the same time, you just don't want to go balls to the wall in getting your macros just coming from, I don't know, Halo Top or so, just because it's higher in protein and it matches your protein intake with all of the other things as well. It's probably not the best idea. But yeah, once again, it's like you said, and the same is how I'm approaching that matter as well.
Cool.
So moving over to another supporter question from Andrew White. We have a thing for Andrews as supporters. So here's Andrew White. Are supersets ever more effective than straight sets if you have the time for straight sets? Aside from specific metabolite work aimed at maximizing pump and block flow, I can't think of any situation in a normal hypertrophy block when an antagonistic superset would be more effective than a straight set when time is not an issue. But I also know that Mano has some great arguments for supersets and applies them in his own programming. Thoughts?
My thoughts are the same as yours, Andrew. Quite literally. I don't know Mano's arguments, so I can't comment on that side. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're not using it as a kind of pre-fatigue for metabolite, it's antagonistic, so that would suggest you're not. So yeah, otherwise I would prefer straight sets. I tend to find that produces higher set quality and so better overall results. So yeah, if time's not a limitation, I don't tend to overprogram it. I don't know Mano's arguments for it though, so I can argue against them.
Could have literally said the same thing. I don't know Mano's arguments, so I don't want to strawman them at all or make any kind of assumptions. But at the same time, I have to my beliefs is that straight sets are always king over for supersets. When you've got the time for it, supersets are a convenient way of saving time. And also it's great for metabolite accumulation. But other than that, I think that once again, straight sets should always be prioritized over supersets.
Can't think of anything else to add.
No.
Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry. So let's go up to the top, and that is Muffins Pizzica's Overreaching Peak Week Strategies. From personal experience, how do you guys get the most out of your final week of training before a deload and active recovery week? I think intermediate advanced trainees who are dialed in with their training and are executing to true technical failure are potentially experiencing severe interference in day-to-day life during this week. Personally, I find sleep quality impacted, increased lethargy during a day, a real sense of demotivation towards training and the gym, and I'm very easily irritated. Even my capacity to ensure my daily step count is adhered to is severely impacted. Personally, to get the absolute most out of this final week, training is prioritized and everything else goes on the back burner.
Interesting. It sounds like Muffins has quite a severe reaction, I would say, to overreaching. I think to get to the point where I'm really irritable and all of those sort of factors, kind of big systemic lethargy, struggling to get steps, that only really happens if I kind of accidentally overreach when I'm dieting, which I have done before, and it sucked. And I try to avoid it when I'm dieting, and I'm less pushy with set volume for that reason, because I don't really want to get to that point, because it takes quite a lot to recover from it. When I'm massing, the overreaching week's like hard, and that week of training is definitely often exceeding my MRV actually. But I don't tend to get to a point where I'm like, I don't know, not able to do my job or function properly. Typically sleep is taking a little bit of a hit. But I actually, to be very honest, this is going to sound really bad. I don't do anything different that week to every other week. I still do all my good nutritional timing practices. I still take care of calming down, doing my good kind of sleep hygiene, wearing my blue light blockers, of course, all of that sort of stuff. The only thing I say I have done on occasion is taking melatonin that week, just to kind of help get myself to sleep. Quite often I struggle with sleep latency in that kind of week of overreaching, and it's often a kind of a symptom of overreaching is negatively impacted sleep. I want to try, what's it called? Slow release melatonin. I've been meaning to buy some so that I can use it for overreaching periods. And the only other thing I've thought about trialing a little bit more, because Greg Potter has convinced me it's probably a decent idea, is using a little bit more creatine that week and maybe focusing less on taking caffeine. I can't remember the exact way that creatine works, but it does help to buffer when you've had poor night's sleep. It seems to have some beneficial effect on that, and it doesn't have the negatives associated with caffeine. So I just try and not abuse caffeine. I do tend to use more caffeine that week, but still probably under 3 milligrams per kilo. It might be that I have like
Blasphemy.
2 coffees versus 1. So not much. Do you do anything different, Pascal, on your kind of overreaching weeks?
No, I'm trying to think of any, but I think because it's a gradual and slow process over the entire mesocycle, it's not that you're going from 0 to 100 and then all of a sudden you are hit by a hammer. But it's more like, I don't know, it's like dieting, for example. If you've been dieting for a very long time, you think that this is, like after 6 months, this is how you've always felt like, right? But in reality, this couldn't be further from the truth. And once you're getting out of the caloric deficit, the changes are very rapid. And thus you can look back and be like, holy shit, this is actually how I feel normally. And the same thing I at least have the experience with in an overreaching blog, that it's a gradual process throughout the overreaching week. I'm getting to a point where I'm very tired, of course, by the end of it. And sometimes, of course, the motivation to train goes down the hill as well. And then the deload comes around and I'm just like, I don't know, re-energizing and coming out of it and realizing how fucked up I really felt in the overreaching week. But it's not to the point where I can't really perform anymore, where I'm just so tired. It hardly, sometimes it is like that, but then I really truly pushed it, where my eyes especially are feeling tired, because I wear contact lenses, and for everyone who wears contact lenses, they know that when you're getting tired, you can feel it in your eyes. It's super weird. And that's the same thing here as well. Sometimes in an overreaching week, I feel just tired because my eyes are constantly dry. Because of that, it's probably a byproduct of not as great of a qualitative sleep. But yeah, I can't say that each and every single overreaching week I feel absolute like garbage, and that it interferes with my life so much that everything else has to be put on a back burner. But also I have to say that, like, we are pretty much spoiled. We are coaches. Yeah. We're working from at home. We have the ability to kind of recover, and it's not that a boss is behind us shouting, saying like, okay, this is the deadline and it has to be finished now. Sometimes I'm also, I don't know, when I feel that I'm not going to be productive on that day, then I take an easier day in regards to working. And I know that some people can't do that. And this is probably the time where you would feel like it may interfere with your life.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And something I quite often forget is how lucky we are with that, because even the time that overreaching sessions sometimes take, I can see that impacting life more so than necessarily how I feel. Just the time, the sessions just take maybe twice as long as week one. So
yeah, and just imagine going to work right after the session maybe, and you didn't have the time to really calm down, relax, because we know how freaking tiresome an intense leg session in an overreaching week can be. Sometimes I need like 1 to 2 hours after that to really just like recover and calm down. It's like, just imagine if you had a job where you then need to walk the entire time afterwards.
Yeah. I have the bit about creatine because I think it'll be interesting to people, because I looked into after Greg told me. So what creatine monohydrate does is bolster the phosphorylation of adenosine, countering the accumulation of extracellular adenosine in the brain during extended wakefulness. And for those that know, adenosine is the sleep pressure. That's what is kind of coined, and that's part of adenosine triphosphate. So it's the adenosine of that. The more kind of fatigued you are, the more of that you get built up. So if we take more creatine to counter that, we should feel a little bit more wakeful. So similar in a way that creatine works to counter, but creatine doesn't kind of get rid of the adenosine like a nap might. So yeah, the only other things I've tried that I would add is ashwagandha. I've tried using a little bit more in that week, and then sometimes, if I'm really lucky, napping between my AM and PM sessions. If I can fit in a 20-minute nap, I'm like, dude, I am like so anabolic right now. But yeah, you're right. We are so lucky in that sense. So, but I think the strategies that we talked about, you could somewhat apply those to.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Let's move over to the next question then. Oh, funny enough, this is about diet breaks. So Nikias Tomasiello. A lot of people advise taking a diet break before, after, around deload week. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on not taking it. Under which circumstances would you not take a diet break around your deload week and instead stay in a deficit, and why?
Well, you pretty much talked through that, didn't you?
I mean, we didn't really talk specifically about the reasons as to when and why. Of course, a little bit individual dependent. Also, of course, when you have a deadline, right, and you are running a little bit behind when it comes to this. But I really would break it down to how the individual responds to a diet break. And sometimes for some individuals, I'm not even talking specifically about me, but some people, they have a very hard time with diet breaks. And I think that this is also something that Jackson Pios even talked about. Or was it? Oh, I'm always forgetting his name, even though that he's a great guy, also from Australia. Jake Glenarden. Jake Glenarden talked about when it comes to eating behavior, that something like refeeds or diet breaks when it comes to physique endeavors sometimes can lead to those very poor nutritional habits. And I would very much say, okay, when is a diet break appropriate and when it isn't? It's time dependent and individual dependent, basically, when you really want to just break it down.
Yeah, it's so context dependent. I just created a post that's going to go out today talking about like shortening my deload and how it's nuanced and it's what's it called? Minutia. And it's just context and individualization. Generally, a week-long deload is recommended, just like maybe generally you want a week-long diet break, but there's certainly contexts into which it's not. And like you said, deadlines, great one. If the person just doesn't do well with taking that break, it kind of sets them off plan for ages. They can't get back on plan. Or even I've had it, I don't know if you do this, Pascal, sometimes had clients who maybe haven't been that diligent and they've almost taken like too many refeeds and diet breaks during the last month of dieting. And I'm just like,
oh, for sure.
I'm not giving you a whole week off now. You've basically had half a week off during this period of time. So we're going to keep dieting if you can.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great point. It's the same when it comes to deloads. If you had like 1 week in the midst of a mesocycle because of whatever reason, and then you are starting things off again in week number 3, of course, I don't want you to take a deload after week number 4 or so, right? So this is then where you make some adjustments based on your current well-being. And just, I would assume that it's a logical thing to do, But of course, we know that sometimes we are also very, very much stuck and paralyzed by the things that we heard somewhere, that we need to deload after 4 weeks, whatever, right? There are so many things floating around in the industry that may confuse people because people think that it's a set rule. And the same applies to something like diet breaks. It's a tool. For some people, it's appropriate to use at times, and for some, it's not. And also, I think it's a great thing that you said about the deload, that it's not a hard rule that you need to deload an entire week. This is also something that I covered in the deload presentation. I said like everything from 4 to basically like 2 weeks or so, it can be a deload. And for some people, they do not train like for 4 days at all, and then they are recovered. For some people, and this is something that I started doing more and more, is to not train at all, because there are pros and cons to training and not training, and I'm not entirely certain which one is more preferred, because I know that there are positive aspects in still training in a deload. But also there are still positives in not training at all, especially for connective tissues not going through repetitive ranges of motion, for example. But on the contrary, when you are training, you're keeping those adaptations in check, maybe aiding recovery due to blood flow. But at the same time, many people, they're just still training too hard in a deload, which then could potentially negate the positive benefits or the benefits are positive benefits. They are always beneficial, right? The benefits of training in a deload when we are aiding recovery. For something like this to happen, you really need to train sub-maximally. Right? And that's why I think that there are so many ways to go about these things. And this is then a question of individualization.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
I had just a very small thing to add, and this is more so adding to having finished the mini cut. I noticed, and this is weird, literally after 2 days of eating more food, many of my diet fatigue factors that I'd started accumulating vanished pretty quickly, abated very quickly. One is even, I was saying how I needed more sleep when I was mini cutting. Even like I've been needing less sleep the last few days. I know it could be impacted by other things. That definitely happened. And then just Charlotte, you're in the background now. So yeah, it was just interesting to me. Because I've never really used refeeds heavily, but after a couple of days of maintenance calories, I was already feeling like actually distinctly better, which was interesting to me. And I think there is individuals, like obviously there's going to be individual responses. Some people will do better, will need more time, other people need less time. So anyway, it was just another point that there is no hard and fast rules here.
One more thing, just to give a little bit of perspective of why we are doing diet breaks. Is of course it's the same as why we are doing deloads. Most of the time, it's for physiological and psychological relief overall. And if this is why you can basically do them whenever you feel like it, but I think that there are inherent reasons as to why you want to combine it with deloads, because the deload in its nature is as well to give a physiological and psychological break. Right? And if you're then swinging back and forth between, like, I don't know, you do a diet break in the midst of a mesocycle, and then the deload is there, and you're just like going back and forth, then I think it's not the greatest way to go about it, especially when we are thinking about perhaps maintaining some muscle mass, trying to aid the overall training fatigue that we've added throughout or accumulated throughout the mesocycle, with also the nutritional side of things. It just makes sense from so many perspectives of combining those together. But it's like also the Gregorian calendar. You don't need to stick with that, but I think it's generally a good rule of thumb or a good thing to follow overall in order to get the most out of these kind of things.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. I think there's a synergistic benefit to having kind of the deload to the diet and the training at the same time. I know people have made arguments that counter to that, but I think the abating muscle and the kind of the physiological recovery, and how recovery is also nutritionally based as well as physiologically based, it makes complete sense to me to run it that way round. So
yeah, I don't want to just like get back to that topic, but I think that one of the counter arguments is, or basically one idea is to do it in the overreaching week, which I think is one of the worst things that you can do, because in a cutting phase, you don't take the nutrition in to really aid the performance and to really progress in the gym. So what it is that you're then doing is basically you're just like aiding in accumulating more fatigue, because you can probably push a little bit harder then, but at the same time, you are probably not in a net anabolic environment because of the previous weeks. We have to assume that the body is not like, I don't know, has an on and off switch that once you're eating more calories, you are immediately anabolic. I think it's a slow gradual process that is then transition out of a cutting phase into then a gaining phase. And if you then consume a higher caloric intake in the last week of your mesocycle, you probably have more energy to push, but those anabolic pathways, they aren't really there. So you are more so just aiding things in accumulating more fatigue, which then bites you in the arse later down the line. And then the deload is around, where you want to mitigate all of that accumulated fatigue. Now you have more accumulated fatigue that you need to get rid of, and then you're reducing the calories once again. Doesn't really make much sense to me personally.
Trying to think of a good analogy. I've never really thought about it that way before, where you've said it, because I've only really focused on the benefits of doing it during the deload. But I don't know if it's kind of like using your thrusters at the end of a race, and then you're completely wrecked at the end of the race, and you have to restart a race, versus kind of fueling up during the end of the race for another race or something. I don't know if that is even fair.
I didn't get that one.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just gone over everyone's head. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. I've never tried it personally, though. I can't say I've tried refeeding or diet breaking that final week before. Yeah. But you might also, if you did that, I wonder if, because it's going to increase your performance acutely in that week probably. And then it's like, well, are you is your performance going to jump so much? Could you risk injury? Could there be something? It just ends up kind of, I don't know if this is the right term, like a bit of a stochastic kind of, like it breaks the stochastic flow of things, puts a bit of a spanner in the works, shifts things off a little bit. And then, you get into the deload and I don't know.
Yeah, and I just think that the physiological changes of an acute higher caloric intake will be so severe that all of a sudden you are in a net and anabolic environment from day one onwards, and then all of a sudden you're just like building a lot of muscle mass in that 1 week. So by assuming that, why would we then fuel the workouts that way when we don't really see any kind of huge benefits from it? It's the same when it comes to set progression in a cutting phase. We, with each and every single set that you're adding, you're not getting the same amount in return of a hypertrophic stimulus. But when you are in a cutting phase, you are more so in a net catabolic environment most of the time. So when you are then expecting that each and every single set already counts less and less, even in a gaining phase, adding more sets in a cutting phase, when each and every single set adds more fatigue now, but less stimulus, doesn't really then make sense to add more sets throughout a cutting phase if it's so detrimental overall, right? So I think that having more of a set or straight set approach in a set approach. What is it called that Eric calls
straight
it?
Sets? No,
straight set approach, like just keeping the sets
static.
The same. Static set approach. Sorry for that. Yeah. Is, I think, a much more feasible way of doing things in a cutting phase than in a gaining phase. In the gaining phase, you can basically still be rewarded from it somewhat. But the thing is that the rewards are also there, super minimal. But you are in a net positive environment. And the stimulus perhaps is justified enough to accumulate enough fatigue as well. But in a cutting phase, fatigue is so much more higher, but the stimulus is so much lower. And the same goes for the principles of then raising the calories in a week where we still need to assume that we are not getting much out of it in a form of a hypertrophic response, but we are able to push it acutely a little bit harder and thus add so much more fatigue to the system that we then need to get rid of even more so in a deload. And once again, to me, that doesn't really, or that these are conflicting things in my opinion.
Yeah, I will only add one more thing, and it's just the kind of the summation of the stress reduction at that period of time. Mm-hmm. So if you are really experiencing, I don't know, water retention from stressful dieting, especially if you're a competitor, that could be really scuppering how you really look. So the combination of having a bit of more food, dropping the training stress can reveal how you're truly looking, and that can help give you more of an idea of where you're trying to go, particularly if you're trying to peak. Like often, like you're not doing your hardest training during peak week, I hope. So it's normally kind of deloady style of training where you do a little bit of volume to kind of get GLUT4 going and nutrient partitioning where we want it. So it's kind of a nice way to practice peaking in many ways as well. So yeah, just another little tick in my box of confirming my bias.
All right. So moving forward to Warren Mitchell. Hey, Pascal. Hey, this is not a question for you, man. Wow. My question, considerations for set/volume in single session for a single muscle group, numerically speaking, in terms of what's the minimum to have an effect and what's the maximum. I understand this is something Mike has spoken about, but I would love to hear your guys' take. As I'm aware, you're not in agreement personally that 3 sets in the minimum effective dose in a session for a muscle group. I share this view as I find that I can get away with less than 3 sets in a session and progress personally. So basically, what's kind of the least amount of sets and what's the maximum amount of sets that is still stimulating in a single session?
So I would say he's strawman Mike in that I don't believe that he thinks you have to have a minimum of 3 sets in a session to grow. I think if you were to push Mike on it, or if it came up in a Q&A, he'd be like, oh yeah, I mean, generally that's what I would say, 3 sets, but I can think of scenarios where you wouldn't need as many as 3. At least that's how I feel it would go. I don't know if Mike's really spoken about it that much. So at least that's how I feel it would go. But definitely I think particularly for movements that are particularly stressful, particularly if they're novel, they can create a lot of muscle damage. We know too much muscle damage is not a good thing. We're not going to be you're not growing when you're recovering, so you need that muscle damage to have healed up. You don't want overlapping soreness. So if you haven't done something like, even if it's like straight leg deadlifts or particularly like lunges we often speak about, or a back extension, for example, when there's a lot of eccentric loading and the muscles being stretched under that load, like the soreness that can produce, or flies. If you haven't done like a dumbbell fly in a long time and that's got a really heavy weighted stretch, you're going to get very sore if you end up pushing that too hard with too much volume. So quite often it might just be 1 set. Or I've had it where it might be in that session, for that muscle group, it may only need 4 sets or 3 sets for that muscle group to get a minimum effective volume within that session. But I know later down in the mesocycle, it's going to need 10 sets, for example. So in that scenario, I don't want to just pick one exercise and be like, yeah, this is 3 sets. So you can just, because they can't build up to 10 productive sets. So I pick 2 exercises, and it might be that they just do 1 set on something. And quite often that's like, I don't know, their triceps, they need more than, 5 sets within that session potentially to hit MRV, but week 1, they only need 3. So I do like 2 sets of dips with 1 set of tricep push downs, for example. Tricep push downs, it's not like there's technique or anything to it. You're already warmed up after the dips. So you can just get away with kind of 1 really effective set. So yeah, I think there's many scenarios where 3 sets isn't the hard rule. It's more of a general recommendation, because I think that does make sense for most exercises, but there are scenarios where the exercise is particularly disruptive, especially if it's new or novel, even if the rep range has changed, or if it's quite a basic, not technique heavy exercise, where just you can add on 1 set because later down the line you're going to need to accumulate more set volume, and so you want to have more choice of exercise to spread that through. I think they're the main ones. I think they're the main ones.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely in agreement here. Don't really have that much to add, to be honest. I can only share my personal observation, and I always bring him up. It's Z because he's just the craziest anomaly I've ever seen in regards to the
guy.
volume that he needs. It's honestly crazy that sometimes I even feel like, okay, something is wrong here and I need to do something about it, right? Because it's so out of the norm that I feel like we have to find a way around it to do more sets or more volume, because to me it seems so wrong to do that little, right? In the first week, we've done, for example, one set of SLDLs followed by one set of leg curls. Boosh! And he was sore for days. Right? And it's not that these
and
are...
this is 4 RAR, right?
Yeah.
4 RAR.
Yeah. And this is not him being super resensitized coming off from a long layoff or a novel stimulus. These are exercises that we've done the mesocycle before as well. Right? And just knowing that, and also seeing how many people have such a different, especially the hamstrings, I feel like are the body part where a huge discrepancy from individual to individual is.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that only can get away with something like 4 to maximum 6 sets per week for hamstrings, even then in the overreaching week. Whereas I have other people who need to do something like 13, 14 sets per week. And just knowing that, and just thinking about proper programming, that of course they could do all of the hamstring. So let's just assume that they need to do 4 sets, right, for the week. They are massively sore then. But from proper programming perspective, they would be crippling sore if you were to do that in one single session. So why not split it up? Also, we know that from the scientific evidence that probably splitting up into 2 to 3 times per week is probably better from a hypertrophic perspective. And if they still get the biofeedback of like they feel like they've trained hard, local muscle fatigue, a metabolic disruption in the sense of like a DOMS for the next days, from only then splitting up those 4 sets into 2 sessions, which then would end up with only 2 sets per session, and it still yields those kind of biofeedback from not being a novel stimulus, from not coming from a layoff or so, right? Then I think that there's just something that must be said, that it's probably hypertrophically stimulating. And this is also where this debate was, I think, getting a little bit misunderstood between Brian Miner and also Eric Helms versus Mike and Jared. They've talked about like soreness, and they very much pumps and soreness, and they were very adamant about talking about that. Where I had the feeling that they were coming from 2 different perspectives. That Brian and Eric looked at pumps and soreness in a very, very different way and put perhaps even too much emphasis on that one. Whereas I think that there are certain body feedbacks or indicators that you want to take a look at. Once the majority of those are ticked off, then you can probably assume that you have been stimulating that muscle group. And that is all coming from the prerequisition of proper programming in the first place. Of course, you will be so much more sore when you're doing Bulgarian split squats and you haven't done them in like 10 years, and you also haven't trained in the last 6 weeks. You will be crippling sore from one set. But I think that when we are taking pumps and soreness and stuff like that, and local muscle fatigue as a standard and as an indicator, it's only a valuable indicator if we are also considering the context behind it. We can't really take those indicators into consideration when we are creating something like a novel stimulus, or we are in an environment that is novel to us. And this is also then, of course, implying coming from a long layoff or completely changing your exercise selection or programming. But later down the line, once the repeated bout effect is actually in place, once you are in kind of a momentum, then I think that those measures and indicators are very valuable tools. That's why I just have to assume that from a personal experience and also from my observation, that there is also something where people probably even can get away with one set, and that is minimally stimulating enough for a hypertrophic growth.
Yeah, I think that was very well said. I like the context of the pump and disruption and the soreness. are under the context of already well principled and programmed training. I very much view them similar, like you're on the map, and now like you're on the map, which is the principles, and now you've got the compass, which can be these elements to help us guide our way through more effectively. I think that's so important to state, because otherwise, it's like, well, what do you use to guide yourself through this? There's not that much when we know about hypertrophy. So I think, with that context in mind, because I know Eric was bringing up like, I can make you really sore if you, I don't know, run downhill. Is it running downhill? Something like that, running downhill, or have really short rest periods. It's like, well, removing kind of those, because they're not in the context of proper hypertrophic training and principle training. So I think that was very well said.
Exactly. And is this how you normally train? This is something that you always can ask yourself. If you were to now go from, 10 sets to 50 sets, yes, you will probably be absolutely destroyed and super sore. But is this how you normally train? No. It all comes under the umbrella of respecting the normal principles and what a normally looking like a training protocol is like overall. And I think that once this is ticked off and in check, and you're not coming from a background of not doing anything at all, and maybe even having done something similar, I don't think that these tools are redundant at all. I think that they, in quite a contrarian perspective, they are very, very useful.
Sweet. I have nothing more to add.
All right. I think we are up on
time.
time. Yeah. Let's take the comment picker once again. So last time Trevor has actually won. So he reached out to me saying like, I don't really need or want this one. But I said like, no, let me take care of this. I'm respecting the winner. The winner needs to be respected, in my opinion. So let me just share my screen with you. Where do I have it? Hey, where do I have it here? Over there. Okay, I need to do it differently. So here it is, sharing.
I can see.
Improvement Season podcast. It was compound versus ISO only, 176, and we asked about the weirdest food habits or foods that you've eaten so far or made in the past, stuff like that, right? So taking the URL, get YouTube comments, 26 comments again, and then start. And Samantha Dunbar, love the podcast. I always learn something new every episode. Very, very cool. I am definitely guilty of looking over both shoulders to see if anyone's looking and then presume to lick my bowl or plate clean law. Yeah, funny enough, this is, so first and foremost, Samantha, feel free to reach out to one of us or, comment just on the next video. No, reach out to one of us either via Facebook or Instagram. I think that's the best way of going about it so that you can get your free membership. And funny enough, licking the plate is actually what I'm doing as well. And at home, I mean, I still feel sometimes very weird in doing that. My plate is always clean as hell after I've eaten.
I can't remember the last time I've licked the plate. So Ada normally does that for me.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic. I do remember when I was at my grandparents' house, like when I was super young. After school, I sometimes went to their place, just spend the day there. And I do remember that their dog, that it was always licking off the plates. Like they actually held it under the table for him to just lick it clean.
I just do it with my Greek yogurt. Mostly just the Greek yogurt. That's about it. Otherwise, she doesn't lick every plate. There's probably a bit much.
So just to give you some details so that I'm not just talking shit, I'm always licking the plate after I had a steak, and then I'm licking off the what's it called? What's it called?
It's going to be gross. The juice or something.
Yeah, exactly. the steak juice that is on the plate. Amazing.
I do drain, if I have tuna and it has like spring water, I drain that off and I let Ada lick that up. She loves that. It's hilarious. Do you have a question this week?
Shit, I'm always forgetting about it, Steve. But the last one was kind of minor anyway.
I've got one.
No, go ahead.
Do you like or dislike mini cuts? What are your opinion on mini cuts? Bonus question, refeeds. What are your opinions, or do you like or dislike refeeds? Yes or no, basically. You can expand on it if you like.
Cool.
We want to hear.
Absolutely. So, guys, thanks as always for tuning in. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification all. Now let's repeat it all after me. Like, subscribe, hit the bell and all. Like, subscribe, hit the bell and all. Right? It's always helping us and for the YouTube algorithm. Unfortunately, that's the case with YouTube. It's always rewarding the ones who have the most engagement. So if you could do us the favor, hitting the like button, because the view to like ratio is actually very low. So guys, come on, over a couple of thousands of viewers and only like, what is it, 60 likes or so, we can do a better job. So it would be very much appreciated if you manage to get all of the way to this part of the video, to just like take 1 second out of that, out of this hour now, in hitting the like button. So guys,
we're going to be YouTube stars soon.
Hopefully.
With the vlogs.
Yeah. Oh boy. So yeah, I'll leave it here, and I guess I speak to you guys soon. Cheers.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.